Hi, wonderful people. So today I'm coming to you because today is the 5-year anniversary of my move to Boston, and I had actually been thinking about maybe I should film a video, maybe I shouldn't film a video. But then last week I was talking to someone about it, and they were like, "Oh, that's so cool! It's so nice that you had like this experience." So I just thought, like, for posterity's sake, I would come on here and I would talk about what it had been like spending 5 years in Boston. It has actually been like the one of the most amazing journeys of my life. It's not like when I think about everything that has happened in the last 5 years, it's definitely not what I planned. But yeah, so stick around. I'm gonna talk more about spending 5 years in Boston. Yeah. So, um, a few things to know about me is that I grew up in Nigeria. I don't think I've ever mentioned that on here. I grew up in Nigeria, so I grew up in Nigeria. I spent 16 good years of my life in Nigeria, and then I moved to the U.S. when I was 16, and I went to college here. So I did my first undergraduate degree here, in UC San Diego. So I lived in San Diego before, and then after I got done in San Diego, I had this idea that I wanted to go to school in England. So I went to school in England for about 2 years. So I lived in England for about 2.5 years. So I went to University of Manchester and University of Lancaster because I have two postgraduate degrees. And yes, after I got done with that, I ended up moving to New York for a while. I didn't like living in New York, so I moved to Nigeria. And then after I was in Nigeria for a while, I was just like, I really, really want to go back to the US. So I had this dream that I was going to go back to the US and I was going to, go work in startups and get into the tech industry because it was something that I was reading about in the newspapers and, seeing a lot of information about online. And I was like, let's see if I can get into that. So that was my original goal. And so when I decided I wanted to come back to the US, one of the reasons why I chose to come to Boston was because Boston has an amazing startup scene, and I got into a school that used to be called the Boston Startup School, but it's now known as the Startup Institute. So I came in for Boston Startup School back in 2013, and since then I've been here. When I came to Boston, one of the things that always amazes people is the fact that I came to Boston without knowing anybody. They're like, wait, what? And yeah, true story. When I was deciding how or where or what was gonna happen when I moved back to the US, I started looking online, and I remember running into the Forbes list back in 2013 of best city for young people, and yeah, Boston was on the list. One of the things I liked about Boston from afar, I mean, at this point I had never lived on the East Coast except for when I lived in New York, but that was for like 3 months, so it was during the spring. So I had never actually lived anywhere where they had like the kind of winter that I now know we have in New England. But from afar, the thing I liked about Boston was the fact that it was on that best list of places to live for young people in 2013. And one of the things that they talked about was the fact that they had a lot of jobs here. There was an upcoming startup industry, or startup industry where that was employing young people, and also they had public transportation, which was particularly important for me and my kids because when I came into Boston, I did not have a lot of money, so it wasn't like I was gonna land in town with like $10,000 in my bank account and I could buy a car and all that kind of stuff. No, it was more like I was moving with my dad helping me out, so I really needed to move to a place where I could really like start getting around and really start pushing it from day one. So yeah, so I came to Boston and it has been quite an experience. Has actually been the experience of my life. 5 years in Boston, when I tell people 5 years in Boston is particularly significant because since I was 16, I haven't really lived in any place for longer than a couple of years, a year at a time. So spending 5 years in Boston has actually been the longest I've ever stayed anywhere since I was 16, which I think for me is really significant because I remember one time I was having a conversation with my mom, and my mom was like, hey, maybe you should think about moving. I was like, I would really think about it, but the thing is, I kind of like knowing where my supermarket is at. I kind of like, I like having a history in a place. I kind of like knowing like the little secrets about, different neighborhoods. Like in Boston, I know that if I get down at Park Street on the Red Line, I can catch a whole bunch of other trains. Like I kind of have an idea of where the trains go. I have an idea of how the city moves. So for me, the idea of being somewhere for 5 years is the little things that makes me feel as if I'm at home. That has been the greatest comfort of being around here. I think the other thing that has been really amazing about coming into a city where I knew nobody, I knew nothing, it wasn't like I had anybody to show me the ropes when I landed, was that I've been able to create the kind of life that I want without feeling as if there is something that, oh, this is the way you're supposed to do it. There is no this is the way you're supposed to do it when you don't know anybody. There is no this is the way you're supposed to do it when, you come in brand new and you're basically, you're writing your own history. So for me, it's been quite interesting because I've basically been able to create the kind of life that I want. And the thing about it is, every once in a while, I reassess my goals. I mean, like I've talked about, changing careers on this platform before on YouTube. So I reassess my goals and I determine if they're working for me. Like that was one of the reasons why I made a career change, because I realized that what I thought I wanted wasn't doing it for me anymore on many fronts, and going back to school and becoming a nurse was going to offer me a level of fulfillment that I wasn't getting elsewhere. So there's been that part as well. One of the things I've really, 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 really discovered in Boston is that people are innately good. Oh my God, that has been my favorite part of living in Boston. When I first moved here, I'll never forget it. When I first moved here, I was walking from South Street. If you live in Boston, you're probably familiar with the area. So South Street, which is like really, like, I think it's financial district in Boston, that kind of area. And I was trying to get to the north end and I got lost and I didn't know where I was going. And I remember going into this pizza shop and the guy actually came out from behind the counter and he showed me like where to go. He didn't have any reason to, but he did it, and that has kind of been like my favorite part of living in Boston. The way people step up to help you. When I landed in Boston, I actually landed in an Airbnb, and I'll never forget, I'll never forget that experience. I landed in an Airbnb. I was wicked sick, like wicked sick. Like I was coughing and hacking my brains out. And I remember that the woman I was staying with was Russian. She was in like her 80s and she didn't speak a word of English, but she knew I was sick and she made me chicken soup. Like this stranger that I just landed in her house made me chicken soup because she knew I was sick, and she knocked on the door and she just gave it to me. And it was so sweet. And I remember I lived with her for 3 months, and every week she would put like a piece of fruit on my shelf in the fridge. And she just used to like wave at me all the time because we both didn't speak any language in common, and it was like one of the best experiences, like landing in a new place. And I've also made like a lot of friends. One of my friends that I made is Megan, who I used to work with. And every time something new happens, like when there is like a massive snowstorm or something, Megan called me and she's like, hey, you need snow boots, you need candles, you need to get food, this is what to expect, this is what to watch out for. And it was so nice of her to like kind of take me under her wings and do that, because a lot of people will be like, hey, it's so cool that you're having this experience, but they don't think of ways where they can help you, feel more comfortable. So it's been like, the people has been the best part of it as well. And I think one of the things that really helped me when I came here was the fact that I had a sense of purpose in coming. So like I said, I came in for Boston Startup School. Boston Startup School wasn't the reason why I chose Boston, but it was something to do when I got to Boston that was going to help me with my goals. So it was really nice because for the first like 6 weeks of me being here, was it 6 weeks? Sorry, excuse me. It must have been 6 or 10 weeks. I think it was something between 6 or 10 weeks. It's a bit foggy now. They gave me that structure and they introduced me to a bunch of people. And I mean, after being in that experience has been a complicated experience of my life. Like, it's not something I really want to talk about, but in the function of helping me integrate myself into Boston, it helped because it gave me a sense of structure, and it also really helped because a few weeks after I arrived in Boston was when the Boston Marathon bombing happened. And I think I would have been much terrified, and I probably would have gone home if I didn't have that sense of structure and I didn't have that place to go every day at that point and something to look forward to. So that was really helpful as well in terms of helping me find a rhythm in Boston. Yeah, so I'm trying to think of what else I had wanted to say about this because I was thinking about it the other day. I think the other thing that helped me as well was when I first moved here, I made myself a promise that I wasn't going to sit home all day complaining about I'm bored, I don't have anything to do. So I volunteered a lot when I first arrived. As a matter of fact, I probably volunteered more when I first arrived in Boston than now that I have kind of like my own regular life. Because basically I'll just go online and I'll be like, things to do. And they'll be like, oh, you can volunteer here for this. And I will, I would sign up to volunteer. So I volunteered a lot. I went for a lot of free events. I used to go on Eventbrite a lot. Like, a lot of stuff I did was on Eventbrite, and I just would like go on Eventbrite and I'd be like, things to do in Boston, or what's happening in Boston, what the tickets are. And because I didn't have any money, I ended up going for like a lot of free events. So there are lots of colleges around Boston that do, like, of course, they do like theater shows and music concerts, or their choir for their school sing. So I used to go for a lot of stuff like that, and that really helped me when I first moved here. So yeah, it's been 5 years in Boston. I'm like so amazed at the fact that I've actually managed to stay in this city for 5 years, and that I have accomplished as much as I have accomplished in Boston. It's been like, I was telling someone the other day that seriously, when I first arrived in Boston, I didn't have a lot of money and I didn't have a blender. So I remember I used to go to my friend's house to go blend stuff. Like, seriously, if I wanted to make like Nigerian stew or something, I would go to my friend's house and borrow his kitchen and cook my food there because I didn't have a blender. I didn't have a car. I couldn't even think of how I was gonna afford a car when I first moved here. And now I have a car. Crazy, super crazy stuff. And most importantly, like, when I moved down here, I didn't have any thought that I would want to be a nurse. But there are just some experiences that you have in life that you're like, oh my god, why am I having this experience? And somehow you get this, things start to reveal themselves, and you start to understand that the journey of your life is not necessarily the journey that you have all planned out in your head, and that things are not going to work out the way you want them to work out. But if you open yourself up to new experiences, and you open yourself up to new dreams, and you don't live life in an overly fearful way. I'm not saying take unnecessary risk, but don't be too afraid of things. Things, they tend to work out, and they tend to take you to new places and to new heights. So yeah, I'm super excited that I've been in Boston for 5 years now. I'm starting to feel as if, yeah, I've lived in New England for a while. I've gone through a few winters, including some record-breaking winters that I can now talk about, and that has, it's a thing. I feel like I've finally made myself a home somewhere. So yeah, I'm super excited to see what comes next in the next 5 years, 10 years of my life. I can't guarantee that I will be in Boston for the next 5 to 10 years of my life, but it's looking more and more like this is home for now. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions about living in Boston, about moving to a new place where you know nobody, because I know that's something that a lot of people find intriguing. They're like, huh, you moved to a place where you know nobody? Yeah, I did it. I've done that a couple of times now, and I can tell you that each time has been a good experience. So yeah, so let me know if you have any questions. As always, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you on my next video.